Welcome to the Long Range Pursuit Podcast, presented by Gunwerks, where we learn about and share long-range shooting techniques, science, and gear.
We're back with another episode of Long Range Pursuit Podcast. It's been a while, at least two. I haven't been on for quite a while. Kind of been changing some change-ups around here. We all wear a lot of hats. You wear a big one, I wear a small one, and we all do a lot of different things around here. I've kind of been shifting roles a little bit, focused on the product development side of things as of late, where marketing was kind of my focus. Yeah, for a long time. We got some pretty awesome new people here kind of contributing on the marketing side of things.
We're happy to have it there. Like, it was just a spot where, we kind of needed that extra touch to kind of get things across the line. So I'm happy to have you there.
A lot of things moving and shaking, and this is one of them. So this is something that's been kind of taking up a lot of my time for the last few months, and a lot of our time and a lot of our kind of been high on our wish list, I would say, for years.
Very long. Very long.
It's kind of been a while in the making, and probably the guys that have been following along have probably seen more than a few. I wouldn't even call them leaks because we've not been that secretive about it.
No.
But just enough out there to keep people stringing along and make sure that they're waiting for it when it actually is here. Yeah. And we're proud to say that the new Gunwerks Elevate Bipod is officially here.
Thanks.
So pretty excited about it.
Yeah. For those that are watching, kind of see a couple different angles of this. Landon's got one, I've got one here.
And obviously, if you're just listening, just go hop on gunwerks.com and check it out, the Elevate Bipod.
Yep. I mean, starting off, why do we want a bipod, Landon? I'll go with you first, and then I can go after. Why do you run a bipod on your hunting rifle?
Well, I guess I would start off with every hunter, unless you're shooting out of a tree stand or hunting in like thick timber kind of jump shooting stuff. I would stick my neck out and say every hunter needs a bipod on their rifle.
100%.
Straight up.
Totally agree.
And there's guys probably rolling their eyes and, well, what about this and what about that? And but I think I'm pretty confident making that statement that basically, and maybe just a little bit adversarial about it, but like if you ain't carrying a bipod in your gun, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. I mean, you're literally, to me, you're literally taking yourself at a disadvantage right from the start. Yeah. If you're like, hey, I'm just going to not carry one because maybe the weight or whatever. Yeah. Or maybe you don't know how to use it. Maybe we'll cover a little bit of that here.
Yeah.
But to me, you are setting yourself up for failure with that one.
And I'll tell you, 7 years ago, I'd never even owned a bipod.
Really?
I was the very traditional, like the only hunting rifle I'd ever owned was a 30-06, $300 off the shelf from whatever store was at the day, and but as you start learning things and understanding how things work and what gear can make you more successful, and starting to learn how to be able to stretch things beyond that, hit a paper plate at 200 yards kind of mentality that I think we all pretty much grew up on.
Totally.
You start realizing that some of these things play a big part in that. And I would say that a bipod, I guess where I would go with it is, again, if you're shooting anything past, offhand, tree stand, kind of whatever else that is, say anything past 100 yards, maybe just to draw a line in the sand, your best method of taking that shot almost without fail is a prone bipod supported shot. Almost without exception. And again, I'm overgeneralizing a little bit, because there's the tall grass where you need a tripod, and there's this and that, and what if I can't get, standing in a cactus patch, whatever, right? There's always shoulder cases, and we all need to have a few extra tools in our bag, but I think that bipod prone should be the number one choice every time when you can.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I've told that or taught that in classes a number of times where it's like, okay, well, wherever you're positioned at, it may be more comfortable to sit,
Yeah.
slightly down the ridge. Obviously, you don't want to try to skyline yourself, but if I need to climb to the ridge top 50 or 80 yards behind me to lay prone, I'm going to do that, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just trying to make it work where I'm at, which I mean, this may let you do that, right? And now that you have so much adjustment to it.
Yeah.
But no, I totally agree. You need to have it. I mean, it's just a bipod in general, but obviously we've gone through all the different ones over the years, and this is pretty hard to beat for that.
I mean, I think we'll dive in a little bit, maybe more into some tactics and some features and some why this and why that and whatever else. But, I think why you need a bipod, great.
Yep.
Why does Gunwerks need a bipod, when there's 1,000 other bipods out there? And, I mean, you've been here, this month is your 8-year anniversary of Gunwerks.
Yep.
I'm a month away from 7 years.
Yep.
We've got a couple years under our belt here. That's like 1,000 in Gunwerks years.
Yes.
And, to think about, I'm not going to name names, but to think about how many ugly hunks of steel and aluminum we've sold on the end of guns for years.
Yeah.
And that product, and I'm not going to name names, it's an awesome product.
Great.
It really is. And
solid.
it's why we sold so many of them.
Yep.
Because it really was the best choice out there.
Yep.
But I think we all recognized here from a long time that it was not exactly what we wanted, and it wasn't exactly the best choice.
Yeah.
The best choice just didn't exist.
Yeah.
And so I think this concept has been in heads here for a long,
Since I've been here.
literally, right?
Yeah.
And it's just been a matter of finding the right time to get the engineering resources to get it done, to get all the parts built, and get it on the market.
Yep.
And finally here, and it's freaking awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, there's some of those. There's tons of bipods on the market now. I would say in the last 2 years, there's been a lot going out, a lot of stuff coming out, but it's still, there's just these things, we're here at Gunwerks always striving for the next level and trying to, up that game. And yeah, and the cool thing is, we had this out all last fall. I ran this all last fall hunting.
Yeah.
I think you did as well.
I bet you we've got more testing on this product than most rifles or optics.
Totally.
Just iterations and fine tuning and here let's tweak this and let's tweak that.
Yeah.
And I think the result is it really helped us elevate the no pun intended, I guess. The performance of that product. So I mean, this bipod comes in at 12 ounces, and I think we specialize in building hunting rifles, right? Especially for Western hunting type scenarios.
Yep.
And so having something more in that 1 pound plus range, it just doesn't make sense. I've always kind of cringed when, you're building this 8 pound ultralight or lightweight hunting rifle titanium, you're trying to save 6 ounces to, pay $750 to save 6 ounces on a titanium action. And then we're hanging a big, 1 pound chunk of aluminum on there. And so getting that weight down to 12 ounces, you're saving a decent amount of weight there on the bipod, and we're also gaining all this other stuff. So what I would say is having used a lot of other bipods, having analyzed a lot of different offerings out there, trying to find the right product for our customer base, this really is, I think, the most capable or feature-rich bipod I've seen that's still in a reasonable hunting weight.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, price point,
right?
Make that.
But I mean, I would dare say that yes, there are lighter bipods out there.
Yep.
Yes, there are maybe some bipods with a few more features, and maybe a couple out there with a few more features than this. But there's nothing that even remotely compares as far as the combination of lightweight and capability in this bipod.
Agreed.
So we engineered this bipod to go very low and very high.
Yeah, what were the specs you're telling
we
me?
can get all the way down to 5 inches usable height.
I'll show it here for people that are viewing. So if I lay those legs out, you're saying that's 5.
Yeah, and just most people think, okay, well, low, that's not really your first thought. And what's cool about this bipod?
Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you that is one of my most favorite features about this thing. I'll tell just a quick story. Mule deer hunting in Wyoming last year, high country mule deer. Watched this basin for this once in a lifetime buck that I missed on the archery hunt. Long story that you had heard, and still recovering from that one. But watched this basin, the entire rifle hunt for this buck. I ended up taking another buck, later in the season out of this basin. Steep downhill angle shot. It's 45 degrees downhill, measured with our, fancy optics. And I'm sitting up on top of cliffs shooting downhill. Well, when it comes time to take that shot, I realized that shooting that steep downhill, there's a couple things you got to happen. Either you got to do a standard height bipod and you got to lift the butt end of that stock way up high,
backpack standing up in the rear
to be able to shoot down that steep, because I'm up on a flat surface, glassing. Or I can get that front end of that bipod really low and still lay prone and pull that shot off way more simple than trying to find some big tall rear support. Easy-ish 360 something, yard downhill shot. But I'm telling you, being able to get low in certain scenarios, especially in really weird variable terrain that hunting always gives us, is actually a huge advantage in a bipod. And there are other ways people have used, like a multi-position leg to be able to get a bipod low, but it's just not the right way to do it.
It's not as stable.
An angled, 45-degree angled leg is not stable. It's introducing weird things into the geometry of the recoil of a rifle, and you're getting muzzle rise, and it's just not the right way to do it. Being able to just splay those legs out really wide and get really low is a big deal. Kind of a soapbox thing there, but I think that's important. On the high end, obviously, being able to get up out of weeds and whatever else, we can extend so there's two leg sections there. There's one's a quarter turn, like a tripod leg, essentially, right? And an internal spring-loaded leg. And so between extending both those legs and then pinching the leg splay together on that bipod, you're getting a usable 19-inch height off the ground. For me, I'm pretty short. That's actually like a low.
You can almost.
Not almost. I can. I did it yesterday. I can actually sit and shoot.
That's awesome.
With that. You're crouching down just a little bit lower, but other than that, it's nearly sitting height for a lot of guys. So pretty dang.
Especially if there's some angled, right? Like if it's a little downhill.
Exactly.
You can definitely make that work.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. I've got a couple same scenarios. Me and my wife's bucks from last year were both the same. Mine was between two rocks.
Okay.
And it was like same thing, down.
Yeah.
Just laid that out, bag in the rear, super solid.
Yeah.
And then my wife's was totally opposite. We were at the bottom, shooting steep up. It was like 27 degrees up.
Yeah.
And so she had that thing almost all the way up, laid up on this little spot.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, and if you guys listening, if you want to jump on YouTube, we've got a couple videos show some of the details on, how to use the bipod, but also some kind of educational videos on, how to get the most out of a bipod, whether it's this or another bipod. Some pretty valuable content there on YouTube to go check out.
Sweet. I'm glad you talked about a couple things of like putting some weird, like either torque on the gun with having those legs in different positions and weird. One thing I'll go over real quick of just like deploying these legs. So we're talking about leg positions. This is one of my favorite features of just it's quick. Hey, I need to.
So a non-locking closed bipod leg, right?
Yeah, exactly. So with this in the closed position on your gun, it's game time. You're going to set the gun down. If you just grab the legs, they go down. There's no buttons.
How many times have you watched guys sit there like you're high stress situation, there's a buck standing there or walking over a ridge or whatever, and it's like trying to hit the button and get it down, and half the time you're already halfway behind the gun and you can't reach up that far. It's like, I think designing that leg where it's a tap and it's down rather than locking it locks open rather than locking closed. It's the right way to do it.
Totally. So this is my little soapbox in a way of shooting off a bipod, or why I make sure I have that on there, is that we're trying to create, and this, so I tell pretty much every customer I talk to, trying to create a bench in the field, right? Basic, or your nice flat prone spot you have back home at your home range, where everything's nice and controlled. The bipod's just going to create that gun, or, that ability to do the same thing, right? So one, I'm always got a rear bag, of some sort.
And I think that's a thing that you guys ignore. It's like, okay, I need a bipod. Well, you still want a rear rest, right? You're trying to support front and rear end of that.
Totally.
Pull off a shot.
So like our little tiny rear bags that we sell and we make, those things are super sweet. I have a little tiny one, fits in my backpack, no problem, and it weighs nothing. I want that gun to recoil nice and straight back.
Yeah.
So if you don't have weird flyers going high or low. So that's one of my big things that we cover in classes. I wish we could cover it even deeper. So much you learn in our courses, but that shooting off of a rear bag and a bipod, it's an art, totally.
Yeah.
Of just, hey, where do I, put the legs out for a weird kind of slope shot?
Yeah. Or
straight down or steep up, things like that. But yeah, just creating a bench in the field is the whole premise of a bipod.
Right.
So,
well, you think about it, and there's actually an old video that Aaron did years ago. You guys want to go dig up some of the archived stuff.
I know when you're talking about
is bench. Well, it's bipod shooting.
Yep.
He starts on the bench and he talks about how bench rest shooters work towards having a free recoiling rifle, and so they want a rifle that is there's no catching surfaces for that recoil to create a jump or a muzzle rise when that rifle recoils back. So you want it to slide straight rearward in bench rest shooting, right? And that would be just, I guess, us going out and shooting off a bench as well. Yep. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to recreate that, like you said, with a bipod. And so creating a little bit of play in the legs of a bipod, to where you can load into a bipod, and you guys probably hear us talk a lot about loading a bipod. That is the whole purpose. It's really not about loading a bipod. You don't necessarily need to be creating pressure into the bipod, but what you want is the position to be forward on the bipod, to where when that recoil happens, the rear recoil is pushing that rifle straight back rather than letting it catch on something and bounce.
And it's just taking the black out of the flex of the legs,
Yeah. It's all about the timing, and guys that, want to tell us that, there's no movement before a bullet leaves the barrel, watch some high-speed camera.
It's moving.
It's moving. And so, you need to be able to address that rifle and handle that recoil consistently, shot to shot to shot, to be able to achieve a consistent point of impact with a rifle. So that's really what we're trying to do. And then it gets even more complicated when you're not on a flat surface or a flat bench, when you're shooting uphill and downhill. Or the ergonomics of the whole situation make it even more challenging to get that consistent, forward position of the bipod and handling that recoil. We could maybe dive into that a little bit more. Here at some point as well. But
totally. We can jump in there right now while we're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Think about those two scenarios. For one, you're shooting straight downhill. It's very common to overload that bipod,
100%,
right?
100%.
And so, and you could go test, and we've done testing on paper and stuff where, hey, if I load this thing super hard, it's either going to impact high or low, depending on the gun, how it's built. And then vice versa. If it's steep uphill, it's hard to load the bipod.
Yeah.
I think about that elk that we were down in Utah way back in the day.
Yeah.
Uphill shot.
Yep.
You couldn't load the bipod hard enough on that for him. So anyways, it was those are the two scenarios where it's really hard. But I look at one thing too, like on this design of these, I wasn't a huge fan at first of these big feet.
They're like big UFO feet.
Yeah.
They're like the really big round saucery kind of feet on there.
I was like, no, gotta have spikes.
You're a spike foot guy.
I've been a spike. Had been for a long time. And when we threw these on, these don't rotate, so that's one thing, they're not going to spin on you, which is nice. But they grip on like really well.
They're almost like, I spend a lot of time in kind of the climbing scene, and it's almost like a sticky rubber. It's a really soft sticky rubber like they put on the bottom of climbing shoes, and it does a really good job of sticking. Yeah, it really does.
There's definitely those pros and cons of spikes. Like if you do spikes, it's like you can keep loading the bipod, and that bipod keeps digging down. Then it moves your, you're constantly, got to adjust up. I keep digging my feet in. This will kind of sit on the top, but like grips onto rocks and things like that. I like that this one doesn't pan. left and right.
Yeah.
And so that helps kind of, sometimes a forward walk, one leg would walk forward and the other leg,
and I think there's going to be guys that are being asking like, well, why didn't you put pan into that, into that bipod? Why didn't you put forward angle legs into that bipod? And there's a very specific reason we did not put pan into this bipod, because pan is probably going to be detrimental to your shooting performance and not
100%.
Advantageous to it.
Yep.
And, sure, there's always that instance where you're shooting on uneven ground, but it's better to adjust your legs to gain even rather than use some kind of a pan, right?
Yeah.
It's very rare that, we're not shooting moving targets hunting. If you're some super sniper, you need to be loading, leading targets way out there, I guess, go find yourself a panning bipod. But I'm telling you, for 99.99% of us hunters out there, a bipod that is going to sit square on your rifle with those legs square to the barrel of your rifle is going to be make you a better shooter.
Totally.
Yeah. You're going to handle that. You're going to get a consistent recoil with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
So downhill, and then there's uphill, right?
Yeah.
And I think uphill's challenging because it's often very difficult to load a bipod.
Yep.
The geometry of it, I guess, and gravity, it's hard to push into that.
Yeah.
Your rifle will usually want to kind of skip up instead of press down into the ground.
Your body mass is trying to slide down the hill, so it's tough.
And that's just kind of a matter of getting some practice and finding the right, working, I think, to find the right, I guess, almost like seat the legs on the bipod, right? And I do think, like you said, those big fat feet make a big difference. You have to get a little bit of purchase to do that.
I agree. They got so for your quick stuff, right? If I'm hopping down, I always tell a lot of people it's easier to start, and in the past, and it's a little different with this, which is nice having this bottom leg being spring loaded.
Yeah.
Like I'll usually say, start tall because you're using gravity to your advantage, right? So if I'm going to lay down and take a shot, I'm going to pop these bottom legs out first, right? So I'll shoot these out, and then, if I need to go down, I mean, it's just a click of a button.
Sure.
And having some weight on this, where like I can just click that button down a notch, left or right. That's the nice, nice spot right there.
Yeah.
That's probably one of my favorite features right there. It's just how quick that does, and it doesn't want to it you click it and it doesn't want to just fall.
Right.
There's a nice positive.
Really fine-tune
Pops it in there. Yeah.
One thing that I've kind of found, and we're still kind of getting, even though we both had at least a season under our belts with this bipod, with the two different leg section adjustments, what I've found I really like is, to me, I mean, it's just simple and cut and dried, is, to me, the twist lock legs is before you get behind the gun, and the spring lock legs is for after you get behind the gun.
I like that.
And, obviously it's really tough to do that twist and turn and extend a leg from behind the rifle. But it's also, that is a little bit more sturdy adjustment.
Thicker leg.
Too, right? And so, if I'm out in thick sagebrush or high grass, I'm probably running around with that first leg, extended.
Yeah, like ready to go.
It's partially extended. I find shooting some of these NRL hunter matches that I'll basically start almost all my matches, or all my sages, if they'll let me, with that first leg, out a couple inches, still folded and stowed. But then you can fine tune with a button really quick on the fly to get the leg heights exactly where
that's sharp. We talked about this, the legs being able to spread either all the way lower. But there's what, 2 or 3 others in here. So
there's 4 positions, and here's an interesting thing I found. And I keep kind of just jumping in here, but you can tell I'm excited about this product. Is what I found is there's no middle position, right? There's a low and a high, and a middle low and a middle high.
Yep.
And I found I prefer my default mode to be the middle low, right? It's actually quite a bit lower and wider than your most bipods out there. And what I found is I go back to some of my old bipods. I'm like, man, these legs feel so narrow, and it feels so
like it's tipping over. Yeah.
But I really like that position. It's so stable. It seems like that's the perfect kind of just middle of the road height for me. And so that's kind of my recommended place to start. But, everybody might find a kind of a different hunting style or scenario. And, the other thing is with it wider, when it's stowed on your rifle, this is just kind of a little insider tip, is the way the display of those legs work is when it's folded, they kind of go flatter or more perpendicular to each other, I guess.
A little wider.
And so what happens is when you're using that wider stance, the legs actually sit a little closer to your barrel. It's just a little bit lower profile.
Yep.
Which is kind of a nice little added feature there.
Just keeping it slimline.
Yeah.
But yeah, those little settings in there, it's crazy, how much adjustment just in that, right? Like even if you didn't use these leg the leg sections, from there to there, it's a pretty big movement.
Yeah.
Without having to extend it. Because obviously, I mean, it's like with a tripod, right? You always want to run the thicker legs, leave the small ones, to the very end if you need it. It's the same, going to be the same here. Obviously, if we have this all the way extended out, it's not going to have as much. I mean, I would say the stability is no different, but it just comes down to like you can flex those legs, forward or backward, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
So, it's pretty sharp there. The little tension locks, that's one of my biggest beefs on most other bipods. Mm-hmm. This is as simple as it gets. Just a little lever, right is tight, left is loose, and you can time it. So if it's, I like it really snug, but then the lever's clear over to the side, you can center it back up.
Yeah.
That was a huge one for me that when they first showed me that, I was like, oh yeah, this is super nice, versus one that either twists or you got to have an Allen wrench or something to adjust it.
Well, and ones that like to walk on you too.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll say, I won't say that it'll never change slightly on you. It'll probably break in a little bit over time, but I feel like it's a lot more consistent than some that I've played with.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, like this, like once I've locked this down, like at a certain tension, it's smooth through the whole thing. It's not like tight in one spot and then it gets loose.
Yeah.
I've really liked that. And then that's another feature of not having the panning. That panning motion would walk some of those tensioners loose.
Right.
So you're like, it just like, under recoil, one leg slightly moves forward or backward than the other, and it looses that tension.
Yeah.
And so then you have this, rifles reacting different every time. And so the more consistent, like we talked about, we can get this to be the better.
We hadn't even talked about the knee lock mechanism. So this is a patent pending feature that we designed specifically for this bipod. Really, really cool deal. So it's really hard to explain over the air. You really got to get on the website and watch the video and see how it works. But essentially, it's going to you use the bipod itself as a mechanism to twist the bipod legs onto your Picatinny rail, and it locks in automatically. So simply press a button to unlock it and twist it back off, and it's literally a second to get the bipod on and off a rifle. Yeah, they really neat.
For guys that are on the video for watching this on YouTube, that whole head there spins, and so if you had it on your rifle here where your Picatinny's here, you would spin it to lock it that way. So yeah, you just on or off the rifle and then back on. So that was like one of the first things that they had on there, and I was like, oh my gosh, like they built it pretty much around.
Oh yeah,
super sharp. It makes it super low. Some of those bipods,
low center mass kind of.
Exactly right. That brought that down super low, so it's not an additional thing on top or a lever or something like that.
It is Picatinny only now. There's some plans to get some ARCA stuff going here down the road. So, I know a lot of you guys out there are ARCA fools, and we'll have something for you at some point.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah. I think probably the two big questions coming up are going to be ARCA and spike feet. You mentioned that. We don't have spike feet at the moment, at launch here, July 2023, but we will at some point here soon. And those legs are interchangeable. So it's just a bullet tip or a ball pen or something like that to release that little detent. You pop those feet out. And we'll have some spike feet for you guys, you spike feet guys at some point.
They're not compatible with anything else that I've...
No, they'll be
on proprietary to us. So for any of those that may ask about it.
Yeah.
Well, what else are we missing on here, Landon? I mean, this is, the bipod to me, like we talked about, it's a bit of a soapbox for me of just like literally every, either gun that I sell to a guy, I have my handful, 2 or 3 things that I have to have.
Yeah.
Or literally I'll turn the truck around and like, I got to go back.
Oh yeah.
Like
I'd feel completely naked.
I literally would, my hunt would be nearly ruined.
I mean, we were joking about it before we hit record here, but I mean, I can't tell you how many, TV episodes and, hunt personalities, not to knock on people, I do a bunch of stupid stuff myself, but like, it's just crazy to me to see professional guys in the field trying to pull off 400 or 500 plus yard shots, and they're not carrying a bipod.
No,
they're shooting off their throw down the backpack and try to pull off the shot. It's like, dude, maybe they're worried about weight, but
you're doing yourself a disservice. You spend all that time and money to put in here and get this one opportunity.
I don't know why I missed that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So if you're not shooting it off the bench at the, even back home, it's like you just can't be that consistent, right? I can throw it on a backpack and it's not going to react the same.
Maybe, and I'm even stretching there, like a sheep hunt where you're 10 days, 90 miles in, and your guide's saying, hey, you're not taking a shot over 300 yards, right? Like there are guides kind of doing it, but most guys aren't limiting it that much. You see a lot of guys killing sheep at 500 yards these days, and the 500-yard shot is tough without a bipod.
Yeah, and especially with how much they're charging for even just a doll these days.
You don't want to mess that shot up.
It's even if it's 300 yards, right?
Yeah.
And I try not to trust anybody that's spotting for me, right? I want to be the one that sees that impact. Right? That's one of the big things we're talking about, loading the bipod. People are like, okay, consistency out the window, right? What does everybody usually do when they shoot a rifle, right? Boom, they bring their head up. Did I hit it? And it's like, depending on the yardage, you're not going to see any of that, right? So if I can gather that information through the optic myself, the bipod is the key to getting that happen, and a nice rear bag, right? So you watch that shot impact it. Like even my wife, she's way less experienced, but she can shoot really well. And it's like she saw everything. She could see everything. Her shot her elk, shot her deer. Oh yeah, I saw where it hit, and it was like, okay, well, like technically I didn't need to be here in a way, right? You knew you hit it.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, I saw where I hit it. And so okay, I'm not going to either be.
You're not wasting follow-up shots.
Totally.
It's a good hit.
So you can be there with your guide and watch that impact with the scope. And he may say with his 10-power binos offhand, oh, it looks like you hit it back. You'd be like, no, like I saw it, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it's a big thing to make sure I'm seeing that impact, and that's what we aim for. In most all of our training is, did you see the impact of the scope? No, I didn't. Okay, well, we were doing something again. The back, the bipod or the back, we'll fix it. So, no, I'm really excited. I think everybody need to get on and check out all the videos that we have. We're gonna have, I'm sure, more to come. Obviously, of different features and different ways you can try to use it and things like that. But
and this is a little bit of a shameless plug, soapbox episode for sure.
Yep.
For the guys interested in the bipod, hopefully some good information here, and like you said, check it out on the videos as well. Hopefully for the guys that may or may not be buying a bipod, at least hopefully you'll learn a few things about if you're not carrying one, go get yourself a bipod. I'd like it if you carried this one, but even if it's got to be something else, just put it in bipod in your band, please.
Exactly.
And and hopefully learn a little bit about what some of the mechanics are, how we can be more successful shooting a bipod. And like I said, I think that series is going to dive into some pretty awesome detail on how to be successful with side hill shots, with uphill shots, with downhill shots, with high prone shots, low, all the different stuff. Some really kind of, I think the guys that can get really creative with a bipod and improvise on the fly, even if you can't really get prone, that bipod can be used for a lot of different things. Set it up on a rock, even working with different, fallen logs and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of ways to apply a bipod rather than just laying flat on the dirt and pulling a trigger.
Yep.
So, valuable tool.
They'll have those opportunities that you were like, man, I just couldn't get steady or couldn't find a spot to shoot. It's going to fix a lot of those I think about a couple of those myself. I'm like, if I would have had this bipod,
I think back, we just had that NRL hunter match here a couple weeks ago. And, going through setting up all the stages, it's really fun to just think about, like, you're kind of getting a little diabolical, like, how can I throw people for a loop here and make this hard for people,
Yeah, you're on the other end of it.
Yeah, right.
You were used to.
And I set I specifically several stages where I think that crowd, and there's some very, very, very talented people in that crowd, like way, way better shooters than I am, ever will be.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of guys in that crowd tend to overuse their tripods.
Yeah.
And it works for them. They're better shot than me. Maybe I'm missing something, but I think there's a tendency to be like, oh, I'm just going to grab my tripod and throw my gun on it.
Totally.
And just not think about anything else.
Yeah.
And I tried to set up a few of those stages where guys that were creative with their bipods, I think, had a pretty decent advantage in some of those stages.
Mm-hmm.
And I recall watching a few people like Joseph. He's a fellow podcaster. I remember watching him on a couple stages, and the dude crushed it because he knew how to use a bipod beyond just the standard lay down in the dirt and shoot, and it worked out in his favor.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Yep.
Anyway.
Okay.
Well, yeah, guys, go check it out. We won't bore you any longer, but we're pretty excited about it, and let us know what you think about it.
Thanks, guys.
Till next time.
If you like what you're hearing here, please take a second and give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on iTunes or on your favorite podcast app. We appreciate your feedback and suggestions for topics you'd like discussed or questions you want answered on the podcast. You can reach out on Facebook or Instagram or send us an email to podcast@gunwerks.com. Also, be sure and check out our full offering of long-range gear at gunwerks.com. Use promo code LRP for free shipping on any order.